Bow down before my psycho power.
Today we have a few different tweets from Harada where he's talking about Anna, he's talking about Roger, Josie, a lot of things, Claudio as well. But first I want to start off with this tweet from the other legendary developer, Ed Boon. Someone asked him, which Mortal Kombat duo do you think deserves their own Shaolin Monks style spin-off game? With these games getting more and more popular, breaking more and more records, they're also all dipping their toes in making movies and making TV shows. You have to wonder, when will they decide to make a spin-off game? When will we see a fighting game take their franchise into a different genre once more? Who knows? If we're lucky, it'll be pretty soon. Ed Boon says, without a doubt, if, in parentheses, when, question mark, we do one, it will be Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Also, when you talk about in this new timeline how they're brothers and their bond is more stronger, but also, as you see in the story, it fell apart. We were seeing the origins of all of these characters and the world devolve into madness. Sub-Zero embraced the darkness while Scorpion was trying to maintain peace. It's really sad that they threw that all aside to reintroduce the multiverse. Hopefully the story DLC that they're working on is really good and it saves the whole storyline. But for me right now, I didn't like it. Now let's move on to Harada. He was having his own separate discussion, but then someone commented and said, I'll buy 5 copies of Tekken 8 if you add Anna Williams. Harada says you should buy 50 copies for her. Now, I personally think Anna will be in Tekken 8 sooner rather than later. I have an updated DLC prediction tier list video that's coming down the pipeline. Subscribe for that. And in that, I go into the details about every character and how likely I think it is they will and will not be. But for Anna specifically, I think she is a Season 3 type of character. Find out why in that video. Subscribe. Let's move on. So, someone else responds to this Anna post and says, hi Harada-san, why do you hate Anna so much? I'm not going to read the rest of this, you could pause and read it for yourself, but it's the typical, oh, you always put Nina in the game and you hate Anna, and people always accuse Harada of hating the character simply because they are not in the game. And to this, Harada responds and says, I don't remember how many times I've written here since I started Twitter, but there is no way I hate a certain character. If I seem to like or dislike them, that's just because you're misunderstanding, because they are all like my children. You're just seeing something distorted by your own assumptions. I'm also the one who is the most disturbed by the popularity peaking order that appears from characters. However, it is inevitable. More to the point, popularity and usage are 2 separate factors. There's 2 more chunks right here that's really juicy, but I want to stop there. First off, people see their character not being on the roster and they start throwing accusations around towards Harada's direction. I personally think that's not smart. Like, to assume that he hates a character, why would that character be such an important part of the franchise for all these years? Anna, Nina, Paul Phoenix, Bruce, Eddie, Baek-Doo-san, you can name all of these characters. Like, Harada doesn't hate any of these characters. The characters that he hated or disliked are the scrap concepts that will never see the light of day. To assume that he doesn't like a character is my opinion. I just think it's not smart. And then the second thing that he says, usage and popularity are separate factors. And I do think this is also super important because some characters will never be top 10. But that does not mean that the character is not important in a different way or special in another way. I think every character serves a purpose. Some characters are there to drive story. Some characters are there because they're like the face of the franchise. Some characters are there because of personality, fighting style. Some characters are there to add a sense of comedy to the game. Every character has their role to play, and who's to say that Anna's role isn't to be just a popular character? Now let's go back to this tweet. The final 2 things that Harada says about this one, it says also, if we keep all traditional characters, there will be no room to introduce new ones. But introducing 50 to 70 characters to a game from the start is unrealistic in every respect. We saw Tag 2 kind of come close to this, and we don't even have to talk about how that game turned out. But on the topic of adding new characters to the game, I mean, look at what Tekken 8 did. A lot of people don't think about this. Tekken 8 had 32 characters on the roster. That is massive. Mortal Kombat 1 and Street Fighter 6 didn't come close to that. And also, they only added 3 new characters. Every other character, 29 characters are all returning. But even with 29 characters returning, there is still like 10, 15, 20 fan favorites that are still missing. And I think this is just because, like, it's the simple fact that Tekken has so many fire characters. Tekken 7 had 51 characters on the roster, and that still wasn't enough to include all of the icons. Bruce was missing, Angel, Roger, Alex, Jun Kazama, right? There was so many characters missing from Tekken 7, even with a 51 roster. Now, this is where other characters start to get thrown into the mix, because once one character is talked about, here come the others. Someone else says they will buy 1,000 copies if Roger is added in Season 1, in Part 1, and Part 2. Now, this is kind of a meme, right? But also, I see a lot of people saying this. There's a lot of people on Twitter who keeps talking about Roger. Now, I also was on that hype train as well. Roger, Roger, Roger. But one day I woke up and I was like, wait a minute. Roger is OP. If you go back and watch Roger's gameplay in Tech Attack Tournament 2, you realize that character has a insane grab game, but also he has insane attacking. He's kind of like a Mishima and a grappler combined into a one. Like, you think Armor King, but no, he's way worse than Armor King. I love Roger a lot, but if they add him into the game, the community is going to be in a world of hurt. This character is so chaotic, so madness, so powerful. You guys can't handle a powerful troll Yoshimitsu. What are you going to do with a powerful troll grapple game god Roger Jr.? Be careful what you ask for. Harada says, I hadn't thought of this end slate idea. It's quite interesting to use 2 slots for one character. So he really doesn't acknowledge the Roger being added to the game. That's not really a good sign for the character. But if he does get added, remember what I said. In 1 to 2 weeks, everyone will not like him. Unless they streamline him and change his gameplay up like they did with Eddie. Eddie is a totally different thing from Tekken 7 to Tekken 8. Someone also says, and how many copies should I buy for Josie? Josie's an interesting case. Everyone hates on Josie because they're crying and blah, 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 blah. But in my opinion, her fighting style was some of the best in Tekken 7 out of the new characters, because I think a lot of the new characters were trash, garbage, and just kind of cheap. But she was like very fair and honest, so on and so forth, glazing up Josie. Harada says, I know that the Philippines is one of the biggest Tekken countries and that Josie has many fans worldwide. We really don't know how large that player base is. I could look at my statistics on YouTube and try to figure out how many people are watching from the Philippines, but we do know that more and more as time goes on for Tekken 8, more Filipino players show up, AK, Dojin, and they do incredible. So they must have some kind of scene out there that's large, active, and putting in work, because those kind of characters aren't made in a void. There's other players surrounding them that's uplifting them and challenging them, right? Now, on the topic of Josie specifically, like I said before, her usage data is very, very strong. She's right around the same area as Marduk. So if Marduk comes into Tekken 8, she also can come into Tekken 8 as well. Now, will they put Fahkumram, then Josie? I don't know. I would more so want them to do a Fahkumram as in Bruce later on, just to see the difference in gameplay. You know, Josie had her moment, now give Bruce his opportunity. But which of the two they'll do, only time will tell. Now, let's move on to this one here. Someone says, I'll buy 50 copies if you remove Claudio. Harada says, this is a novel opinion. It's a new method of expressing a willingness to buy more in order to get rid of a character you don't like. However, in this case, there's a large element of mutual loss, so it would need to be compensated in a different way. Honestly, there's not too many characters that I would say remove, because I like Claudio. I think his gameplay in Tekken 8 is a lot more interesting than it was in Tekken 7. In Tekken 8, his gameplay is very cool. It's very exciting. It's so much better than Tekken 7. If they would have did what they did to Shahid in Tekken 8 and Claudio what they did in Tekken 8 to those guys in Tekken 7, I think the conversation surrounding them would be so much different. But people already have their minds made up on these characters, and people just naturally dislike and like characters more than others and whatnot, right? But the idea of removing a character, I mean, I don't know.